2023. It's your TA report. We're a few minutes late, but that's okay. Nick and GP and I, we were catching up on some things. And that's okay. So Monday night, here we are. It's your boys. Hi guys, how are you?
Good. I can't believe it's Monday Night Football.
I know. How's the weather up there, GP? I saw it was some shelter in place earlier.
I as long as the Giants are stinking it up, it's shitty as hell.
Ah, they did.
Gosh, that was manhandling. It was absolutely terrible.
Nick, are you a football fan? No, you're not. You don't care about the Vikings.
Yeah, not really.
How you gonna lose to Baker Mayfield though? That's just sad too. Not that you care.
I don't even know who that is.
You didn't even know who that is. It's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? He didn't keep up with that. He barely knows the Vikings are purple.
Yeah. Yeah, too many years in the service industry and just getting to know a lot of the athletes and kind of on a personal, not a personal level, but somewhat. It's tough to root for teams and players when I wasn't a fan of them as people.
I feel you.
So
Understood.
I feel that.
But I mean, I definitely I've been a athlete all my life. I definitely love playing sports.
So we last week we kicked off our stock of the quarter challenge, and what a move. I mean, this is a perfect segue for me to humble brag and pat myself on the back and show my big brain here. But right, what a move on Tesla today after the Morgan Stanley upgrade. I mean, that feels pretty good, right?
Yeah, what a ripper.
Yeah.
1% today.
It's about freaking time, man. Last 10 days has been brutal on that stuff.
That was like a perfect entry for me last week.
Yeah.
We should have started on the 18th and it would have been even better.
Well, yeah, I know, GP, I know. But yeah, I think it was a pretty good time to buy, obviously. But all this AI talk, and I guess that's a lot of the things that you've been saying, GP, right? Was that Elon says he can't buy enough NVDA chips and they're not building their own yet. And they're trying to do more AI at Tesla. So it seemed like Jonas at Morgan Stanley thought, oh, I hear some buzzwords. We got to raise this price target up.
Yeah, it was a really weird price target raise. That's what I would say. 400. That's not even back to all-time highs. It's like, let me just pick a number out of the sky. I'm sure he has a valuation model. But why not at least 413, right? where it peaked or whatever it was. But he chose 400. It's a nice way to kick off a move that was already technically telling you it was coming. So it's nice to see analysts paying attention to charts. I think the last time he did this was after the S&P inclusion in 2020, and I think in the next 3 months we more than doubled in price. So
am I wrong here? Was he a bear on them for a while? There was somebody who was a bear.
He's been flip-floppy for the better part of the last decade.
All right.
He'll come out and be like, I think it can go to 400, but there's a possibility it can go to $1. And you're like, what? What? You mean it can go up and down? He's just.
Well, it sounds like Mike Wilson's S&P targets. Well, it could be 3,600 or it could be 5,000.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Sorry, I didn't see your tweet. And I was just
shout out to Mike Wilson. But this is a name we've all had our eyes on for a while. And you're both already long. So I was able to pick it up and scoop it up for my pick in our stock draft. But I don't know. It's just coming off of what we saw 2 weeks ago with the animal spirits of buying in the market. this felt a lot like that today, right? Like we had this buy, when was it? Yeah, the last week of August, the huge buying into the Labor Day holiday. This morning in Tesla, that kind of lifted the entire market. The Qs were up more than 1%. SPY was up about 2/3%. It just there was no stopping the freight train once everybody, it's the meme that I like to post. Let me in, of Eric Andre shaking the fence. That's how it seemed to be in Tesla this morning, and we've all seemed to be on the same page that we think we're going higher. But is this the catalyst to start getting us there?
An upgrade? No, I don't think the upgrade is, but I think the slew of other stuff that's going to be coming out on the back of this upgrade is probably what's going to push us out here, right? This was enough to shake us loose out of this. They kept selling the 50 SMA, 50 EMA, whatever it was, right? Literally,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 straight days that they kept selling it. So they finally were breaking out of that range.
On some pretty big volume.
Yeah, on big volume. It didn't even give you a moment to dip today. That's the thing that I noticed the most was
you had to buy the
until 520 until 325, it literally did not budge. Right. And that's when it dropped $2, right? Everything else was like $1 down and then straight up, dollar sideways, and then not straight up, it was grinding, but it just tells you that it was impossible to get in today. You couldn't have gotten in if you were waiting for a pullback.
I think those melt up days are hard to day trade. So I would imagine even on the day trade side of things.
But Nick, almost everything else, right? Like for the last 2 months, we gap up in the morning and we sell off the entire move in the first 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So I was expecting off the open something similar, right? Like top to like 265-ish and then get destroyed right back down to the open and then take off. And none of that happened the whole time. So it was definitely a change of character. For something that kept rejecting the 50-day for 8-9 straight days.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I'm like, God, are we gonna get another strong Monday open and just another fade? Like I'm sick of it.
It's been going on for how many months now? Pretty much. We've been sideways in the market since May.
Nick, one thing you were saying was you hate to day trade on a day like today.
I think they're difficult to trade, like melt up moves, or even like what I deem a trend day. So like for instance, today on Tesla, like your entry had to have been 266.06 if you day trade in a similar way that I do. Other than that, like that's your only entry. Because when I look at gaps, I'm paying attention to the first 60-minute range.
Yep.
And like I've said before, if that gap doesn't fill within that first 60 minutes, I'm either expecting a chop day or the trend to continue in the direction of the gap. But either way, like trend days and kind of melt up or melt down days, they're difficult to trade if you don't drill it. Like if you're not on top of it, because where are you going to enter? Like even if you're trading like a down to, God, I mean, the smallest time frame I go down to is a 10-minute bar. I mean, God, even if you go down to like a 3-minute time frame, like still, where are you entering if you weren't? Yeah, I don't know.
But
just
you
fine.
couldn't, right? That was
Yeah.
the thing that was noticeably different. In every other stock, look at NVIDIA, it popped $10 and dropped right back down and went red hardcore. Everything else, Netflix, Apple even went red, even though it turned green at the end. Almost everything that popped on the open got smoked, but
Yeah.
Tesla barely came in, and that was really noticeable all day, because I think I set it out in the morning in my service was, I feel like every sell that I make today is I'm gonna regret. That's literally what happened all day.
I mean, maybe I don't know. You guys are much more experienced at day trading than I am. And I've been doing my little 15-minute option game. And I bought Tesla 270s right here. Right on this wick right here, right at the 945. As soon as this body stayed above right here, that's where I bought it. So it was like 262.40 something when I bought Tesla. And it was a profitable trade. I didn't stay in it half as long as I should have, but it was a big winner for me today. So I don't know. I maybe that was more risky than either one of you would have played, and maybe that's something for me to learn and take from. I didn't feel like it was that risky to me.
I mean, looking at the daily, you basically tested that pivot high. Where was it? High 261.18. So at least you had a floor to trade against.
Well, this is what I was looking at. This is right there what I was looking at.
Yeah.
I was looking at, well, I'm going to get in a little bit below sort of the exhaustion of the gap up on the morning, right? So that was the range that I was looking at, was right here, right around that 262.40 area.
Yeah.
And once it went over it and I saw this candle was going to stay up here, I just pulled the trigger. Now it gave me the oh shit moment I need to sell when it did this number, right? But 20 minutes later, it was gone and off to the races. So, like, I don't know. I'm relatively young to doing such short dated stuff with size, but there's been positions that I've entered in off the first 15 minutes. I was like, this could really go either way, but I was looking at my Stoke. It looked good. My RSI, it looked good, right? Like, so I don't know. I felt like it was a really good trade. I didn't know it was going to do 10% on the day, but I felt like it was a really good trade.
Where did you have, where would you have stopped out if it would have continued lower?
Below, like if it had broke this right here, so whatever that
Sure
is, like 261. As soon as it would have broke that, if it had made a new low on the day or retested the low on the open, I would have been out.
Okay.
And usually this is kind of how my intraday trades look. Is there's an entry, right? And then it's almost, this pink line right here doesn't really count. That's an old line that we put in there, that I put in there. But I basically would have looked at it like that, right?
Yep.
And I sold somewhere right here. So once it went above and then really went above, I was out. So it was a nice trade.
Yeah.
So it's like, what? I don't know, 3-1 there, right? Anyway, I don't want to get too inside baseball.
No, that's what was a surprise, because Tesla did continue stronger. And if you look at the 5-minute chart of Netflix, it looks very similar to Tesla, but the Netflix cracked, right? So that's what most charts have looked like, day trading or intraday charts have looked like, and Tesla did the opposite. So that was nice to see, right? It popped and then just gave it all right back. It did nothing.
It was certainly nice to see.
Yeah, and it even took out ranges just to trap people and then sold right back off, right? it took out the prior high, gap, earnings gap, everything, and it was straight down.
Well, you look at other names, right? Like, I don't know, NVIDIA. NVIDIA is NVIDIA is one of my fuck around 5 that I've talked about that I like to trade options on. I mean, NVIDIA was not what Tesla did at all.
No.
And if I'd been looking at NVIDIA, maybe I would have gotten suckered in around that same area, somewhere through here after that, probably after it came up here. That would have just been a premium burn day.
Yep.
What do you think
And-
of, oh, sorry.
No, and there's just been so many premium burn days over the last 3 to 4 months that Tesla not doing that was a shocker to me. And good to see. That means it's got more momentum waiting to be taken advantage of.
Yeah, that weekly, God, the more I look at it, I'm really starting to see more of like an inverse head and shoulders on that weekly and even the monthly time frame, with kind of like a neckline at 300. I was watching that, so I had 2 pivots that I had alert set with, which was 261.18. I have that set as a B point for a leg higher, and then on the weekly time frame, basically through that 300, whatever it is, basically 299. Let's just call it 300. Again, for a larger CD leg higher.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, God, if that plays out, I mean, I think 400 is an under. I mean, I think 400 minimum. I mean, back, I'm thinking like, shit, if this thing really starts to run, I think you might have picked the stock of the contest winner here.
Don't sleep on no Wayfair, man. Don't sleep on no Wayfair.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm you know, I like to bust your guys' chops. It's not necessarily me, like I told you so, ha 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 ha, it's Tesla, right? It's more of like I enjoy when we all win and when we all get in winning trades. So
Yeah.
if I don't have the stock with the highest percent change, I want to see us all at 100%ers at the end of the quarter. I don't think we're all going to have 100%ers, but I want to see us all have big winners. And yeah, Nick, I'm with you. Like once you get through this 300 area, I mean, I'll pull up it's pretty light in volume up there. That doesn't mean there won't be sellers, but it's pretty light. We're already entering that stratosphere, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it could definitely. I'm with you, GP. Why 400 is an oddball number to some degree. Like if it gets to 300, it's getting to 400.
It's getting to 600, but that's a
Right.
whole different conversation.
Yeah. But like price targets are normally done with quarters in mind, not a quarter in mind, like we're doing, right?
Yeah.
And you might readjust after a couple of quarters or a full year. But yeah, if it gets above this 300 range, especially this like 313 gap and these high wicks, it's going over 400.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be pretty quick, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to take that long to get there. There's so much pent up energy. You see that head and shoulders play into an inverse head and shoulders. A bearish pattern into a bullish pattern is usually recipes for it's powder keg, right?
Yeah.
I just wish I'd bought more last week.
I was thinking the same damn thing.
Yeah, I was buying a bunch in the 120s. So
And that's the real winner right there, is buying a bunch in the 120s.
yeah, the volume that came in the 120s was bananas, right? Like if you weren't looking at that volume and saying, holy shit, people are trying to get the hell in.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of when, not if, right? I think I was posting it on StockTwits as well. I'm like, you should be buying here. But it's hard to see when you're down 80% in a stock in like a year, it's hard to see the points, right? To
Well,
where
it's not just that. I mean, hindsight's always 2020, right? And we can always look back at why something didn't happen or why we didn't do something. There's always circumstances, right? Like the market, a lot of these names started taking off in October, right? Tesla was still selling off into December and started picking back up in January, right? So like we've talked about it a lot, that why being something that looks like it could be a loser or not as quick of a winner, a better setup somewhere else as to that. Yeah, GP, you're absolutely right. Look, the volume is insane.
yeah, and the thing was, right, like throughout the whole drop, right, of the markets, NASDAQ, all that stuff was down 37, 38%. Tesla was 25% off the highs.
Right.
It was the day Twitter closed at the end of October.
Yep.
It became a onslaught. It was just momentum, right? And momentum takes over, and then you add Elon taking shares to the woodshed, right, by selling his own. Even though he's always said, "I'll be the first one in, last one out," right? And then he's like, "Oh shit, I got to pay for Twitter because I'm a dumbass and I paid $44 billion for it." And it literally was a straight line down from that 313 area. We're only $100 off the highs in October, and then you lost $200 in 3 months. It was nuts. So I can understand why you wouldn't want to buy in that 120 area and why you thought it was going to go lower. But that volume was enough to say it's worth a shot here,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So it's not saying it's hindsight, but it's helping you to understand what to look for when things do start to bottom, right? And
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. And we all have our own circumstances of what we're working with in our own portfolios, what else we're all looking at to invest in or de-invest in, right? And Tesla is one of your core holdings that you keep adding to, right? I'd already gotten out of Tesla quite some time before that, right? So I was looking to get back in, and yeah, I would have loved to got back in the 110s to the 120s. Of course, looking at it now, who wouldn't want to do that? But there were other positions that I was adding to, right? Like I think I've gotten back in NVDA. I'd sold NVIDIA too early after I bought back in this time frame, but there to me, right, there were other things that I would rather be interested in or rather be buying in than Tesla at that point in time. But you're right.
Oh yeah, and NVIDIA was already showing technical change at that point, right? A pullback to the 21-week moving average in January and holding and wicking off.
So here's NVIDIA, right? If we look back to October to January, right? Like
there's that wick right off the 21.
There's a little bit of a difference. Like this looks like it's going to hold that and keep going up, as opposed to this could keep falling further.
Yeah.
Anyway, not saying you're wrong. It's just we all have different things that we're looking at and reasons why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Speaking of NVIDIA and the semis in general, what do you guys I mean, I'm kind of in the camp that they need to rust a little bit.
Semis in general?
Yeah. I was kind of thinking.
Are we talking about AMD? Because AMD hadn't done jack in a really long time. So
yeah.
What needs to rust is the question, or which one? Yeah. SMCI also got beat down. Broadcom got beat down, and NVIDIA. I don't know. Like we've talked about this quite often. There was a shit ton of people who got in last quarter. I'm not talking about retail investors. I'm talking about institutional people who don't hold for just a quarter typically. Maybe they do.
So I increased my semiconductor positions last week. I bought Soxel. I bought some more Marvell. I could be wrong. I could be early. But Nick, I think they are resting. I think that's what's happening right here, right? We're getting a correction of time, not price. And while prices are still elevated, they're not moving, and they're catching their supports in the moving averages. So we're looking at the SOX right here, which is the semiconductor. Could they come down? Absolutely. And the SMH is just a little bit more elevated than the SOX. But if you look at TSM, right, it's kind of where I want to see it resting, right? Like I
look at TSM.
Kind of where I want to see it holding on. Now that doesn't mean it might not pop through and break back up eventually, but this is kind of what I want to see if the correction is time and not price. NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA is holding on to the weekly 9. So I put money to work. I put my money where my mouth is on semiconductors. I mean, I'm really looking at ASML. I know you like CLAC, but ASML is a name that I've been doing a lot of study on. It's just right underneath that 50 weekly.
Yeah.
It's about ready to kiss the 21 monthly. So I'm kind of watching it in this 600 zone and see how it happens. I'm not in any hurry to buy, but this is a name I wouldn't mind to be in at a pretty good risk reward spot. It's just not there yet, in my opinion. You look at Intel. I mean, Intel's chart looks better than most.
Yeah, it looks pretty damn good.
Right? Like it's on the monthly and the weekly, it's taking all of its moving averages higher. So I keep my eye on the SMH, the SOX, and Taiwan Semi to kind of try to give me a gauge of where the semiconductor charts are, regardless of what, the individual names of, Broadcom. Again, Broadcom looks like it's resting to me. AMD still holding on to this like 102 area right here. I'm not going to get worried until I see NVIDIA break down from this level right here. And it's not yet. Does it look great? No. But at the same time, it doesn't have me in a position where I'm like, oh my God, I got to sell my third biggest holding in my portfolio now.
Yeah, right. I mean, I was just thinking that we're heading, like, we're basic, I guess, better verbiage. I just was thinking that we're going to get a chance at 400 again on the video. That's kind of what I was thinking. If this 50-day doesn't hold, I thought it would kind of test the low end of that range.
Yeah,
Probably likely where we're in a bottoming out would be my guess. But
the 21 would be right there. The weekly 21 would be like 412.
Yeah.
I'm not betting on that to happen, but that wouldn't be the craziest thing I've ever heard. GP, any NVIDIA take?
It's doing exactly what it did post earnings last time, right? And if you look at the patterns, it went post earnings, it popped to 379, went up to 419, came back down to test, broke through, came down. Like it's finding what's it called, acceptance, right? As it continues to grind higher. There was more sell volume before than there is now, right? And yes, is it daily, week? Sure, right? You're in it, but you're still above 440, right? You're still above the kind of level where it popped into earnings, and it's still holding that level, and it basically did a retest of that level today. So a retest wick and hopefully push higher. But if it breaks what was that? Low is 442.22. That's the level I think you'd be watching, and that's literally the level that was tagged today. So if we break below that, you can get more bearish. But until then, it's come back and retested the breakout for the last since May every time, and then moved higher. So if that doesn't happen, that's a change of character, and then pay attention to it. But right now, that's exactly what you're doing. So if you were taking a trade here, that's your risk reward. Stop at 442 or slightly under because it does move in wild movements, but then you can be long to the upside, right? Like
I also think that ARM's IPO is a go on Wednesday this week. So those shares will be out there and available. And I do think that here's another very large player that people will want to be, involved with. So just like balancing out any portfolio, well, I'm high in these 3 chip names in my portfolio, but I want to be active in this ARM investment. I've got to reallocate some of that capital probably, or some of those returns probably in my other semiconductors to put that into ARM.
Yeah, there's a possibility. Though I think that money's probably coming out of AMD.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying is if you have a basket of semiconductors, you're going to have to take some money somewhere out of semiconductors, most likely, and move it into ARM if you want to be involved in the ARM IPO.
Yep.
And don't get me wrong, these institutions, they aren't waiting till the opening bell, right? They're getting in on pre-IPO pricing. So they're moving that money out over the last few weeks to be able to get in on this ARM piece of work as opposed to when the market opens.
Yeah, I think Robinhood is offering ARM IPO as well.
Yeah, SoFi is too. Yeah, you can get it in SoFi, but the volume, right? The big trades that are really moving price actions coming from the institution, not the retail investors on Robinhood and SoFi.
Yeah, agreed. But the ARM technology in general is pretty good compared to like the other ones. So I like it. But IPOs, you can day trade for like the first couple of months, 6 months or whatever it is. And then you gotta just let it base. And we've seen it last couple of years in almost every IPO, Uber, Roblox, literally every single IPO is back down and basing, right? And now we'll see what transpires from these IPOs. Most of them are cash grabs and will never return, but it's the ones that aren't cash grabs that you're going to be looking for. So ARM, I don't know how ARM affects semiconductors, honestly, but it'll be interesting to see. I hadn't even thought about it, Bags, to be honest. So on the spot a bit.
It's okay. I've thought about it.
Shall we talk about Rivian?
I would love to talk about Rivian.
Tell me this thing is not itching, just itching.
Oh God.
My time frame was always after September OPEX because there was a lot of puts in the September OPEX that were on for the last couple of months, ever since the July OPEX. So
you guys are going to have to talk about this because I'm just going to get dirty about it.
Yeah. So I posted the chart a bunch of times. It looks exactly like Big Brother Tesla off the bottom, right? Moved out after volume and then did a 50% retrace, give you a fake breakdown underneath, and then reverse right back through. And now it's kind of flagging for the next leg higher. It's going to need the catalyst. The question is, what's going to be that catalyst? Will it be Adam Jonas stepping up to the plate?
I don't know, but it looks fucking primed. Like it looks like it is just ready to bust out. Like I'm ready to bust. Just yeah. I mean, look at the fucking chart, Nick.
Yeah, the weekly I love more than anything.
The 4 hours just riding it, the 9. Look, I mean, then you go to the weekly, and it's just a breath away from being above it is above the 9 right now, currently, as we speak. Anyway, it just
inside month. It's just
this is a beauty.
it's got all the makings of a great hedge for Tesla. And I mean that in the most positive way, right? Like if you're it's anecdotally, we've talked about it for months now that we're seeing a lot more Rivians on the road, right? So it's passing the eye test, which is they're getting production resolved and people are now starting to take deliveries on their cars. And most of the people I know who are former Tesla owners are now Rivian owners. So it's just stuff that when your network speaks to you, you kind of got to listen. So outside of that, the chart just looks great.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the weekly, you have that crazy move off the fucking lows. I don't know, I'm swearing, sorry. The volume just dried up as it pulled in. I was like, it's pretty much exactly what you want to see. Like
Yes.
I'm with you. Like I don't generally like to trade cheaper stocks, but I mean I
The
have
breakout takes you to 40
in
from
Rivian.
here.
And the thing is, like, I don't even think it's gonna get starting until we take out 41. I think when it takes out 41, I think that's when I would technically consider it going stage 2.
Oh my God, you guys. I'm having to fan myself over here right now.
And
At least looking at that, more so
41
looking
is
at
going to
the
be hard resistance, though. It has been for almost every stock on the planet. This horizontal sideways kind of 41 is going to be, I would imagine, hard resistance, but this is going, to me, it's going higher, much higher.
It reminds me of this chart right here.
Yeah.
On this move right here.
Yep.
I'm not saying it's going to be 100% in a couple of weeks.
But you're saying it. But you're saying it.
But I'm betting on it. I'm not ashamed to say it. I moved over the last week or so. I moved a lot of money into the market, and Rivian is now my second largest holding.
Rivian
is only behind Amazon.
Damn. And speaking of which, Amazon had a phenomenal move.
I know, Nick. Oh, Nick, I know.
I was all over that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting to see Amazon stay strong the whole day.
Oh my God.
I thought so too. I was like, dude, what did something, was there news out or anything?
Apple's weak. Might as well plow it into Amazon.
Somebody tossed me a wet blanket.
Yeah, God, that weekly. God, these weekly, there's so many good setups. Like it's just almost like base on base, range on range, and everything is just stair stepping.
Yeah, and so the number one for me, like I know Amazon did really well today, but Microsoft looks phenomenal.
Mr. Not So Softy.
Yeah.
It's a, what does that look like to you? That looks like a multi-year cup and handle forming in a consolidation type move, right? This is how cup and handle happens. Off a big bull move, you have a consolidation period that happens. It's usually a 30% drawdown, right? In the cup. So you have, what is that? What's that drawdown from the bottom of the top? About 30%, 35%?
From the top? The high wick?
No. From the all-time highs down from before. From 2020.
Oh, from 2020?
Yeah. 2021 or whatever.
Yeah, 38%.
So this is typically what you see in cup and handle formations, right? Which is 30 to 30, I think it's 37 point, whatever that FID number is, 37.8% retracement of the bull candle up, which was a monster bull candle up for how many years? And now it's consolidating. I think that's the bigger story for me.
And almost a perfect 50% retracement of that.
Yep.
Well, not quite. More like a 38% retracement, but Yeah,
So you
it,
can
it- yeah.
you can argue that it's putting in potentially a wave 3 here, right? Or a wave 5, however way you want to talk about it, but cup and handle, lots of stuff. This is healthy consolidation, right? It tried to break out again. Now it's forming a handle here, right? A consolidation handle. So that and Apple looks almost the same as Microsoft. Even though Apple is no longer in China and it's banned for life, what's it doing? It's holding the prior kind of base top.
Yeah.
You think Apple losing China would not cause it to die completely? Like, it's a big part of their revenue stream. It's a big part of their entire company. For you, like, I don't even know if it was substantiated. Did anyone actually substantiate the rumor?
No,
These are-
well, it's came from the FT, which we know is the Financial Times, and it's a straight Beijing paper. But it's not confirmed that it's happened. It's their talks and discussions of it happening. And my point last week that I floated out there was the delegation from the US just left China 2 weeks ago, right? The week before this happened. Do you think that they came home and didn't know that information and didn't tell, right, Apple that, right? Like, they're, of course they did, if that was known at the time, which I wouldn't think, why wouldn't it have been known if Beijing was going to do this? They didn't just wake up the next morning and be like, we're going to ban all Apple phones. All iPhones are banned. No, they didn't just pull that out of a hat. That's been that's a negotiating tactic.
Yeah, and it's typical, right? Apple, before almost every earnings, comes out with a random ass rumor report that says iPhone production is down. And then the earnings come out and it's like, oh, they had all-time high iPhone sales. You're like, what about that rumor that was started 2 weeks ago?
Yep. And
So-
I think the EU information is, just as I don't know. I don't think that either one of them have been to the point where it's solid news that is irreversible for Apple to figure out, or the United States to figure out some way to combat this. Sure, I get it that the Chinese want to have Huawei phones in their people's hands. Why wouldn't they? But there's some other way. It's a negotiation ploy, is basically what I'm getting around saying, in my opinion.
Mhm. And the charts are kind of like confirming that, right? Because
Yeah.
it's
We don't believe you.
yeah.
I'd love an opportunity at like 160s.
I think
If
that's
I
gonna be
could
really
get it.
hard pressed, to be honest. It's possible. And
Yeah.
they do all kinds of shenanigans.
If
But
it gets in the
here's the-
160s, you may as well wait for 130.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Um,
I mean, there's your range box, Nick. I mean, really, if you think it's going to 160,
I'm not
just
saying
here.
I think it is. I just saying I would love an opportunity there. I don't own Apple. Just drawing out like some lines, I like a CD leg would complete at 165. I'd probably just actually end up waiting. I'd be more looking at kind of 155,
57. Yep.
Yeah, I like that. I like that whole zone. So I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah. The 150, if you go to the weekly bags on Apple, 157 is
yep.
it's a multiple. It's been hit with resistance a lot of times and then finally broke
Yep.
through in March of this year. So that's kind of the level that if we do die from here.
It's roughly half of the zone, half of the
Yeah.
range too.
Yep.
I mean,
Mid-range.
Yeah.
the same time, you could use that pop as like a double bottom pivot too, that 189. If you're not, I mean, if we double bottom out of this 173, 174, I'd have no problem using 189, 190 as like my pivot for as a double bottom, or like the confirmation that it is double bottoming out of here. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I got
Nate.
some positions on. I'm not too concerned about Apple.
I agree with that, Nate. Yeah, I'm with you.
And then like if you also like all these charts are looking the same. Like if you're looking at Meta looks,
Yeah,
it got right to the gap. It finally filled the gap and saw a very low volume pullback, and now it's starting to accelerate higher here, and it's showing relative strength versus the rest of the market. I don't know what the hell that was last week, where it went to 306 to like 295 in 5 minutes. That was,
yep.
but there's a liquidity issue if you're looking at some of these charts. So like it basically got to a point and then buyers just stopped buying, and then puts took over and it just died. It's just there's a lot of games in the market at the moment. So
Yep.
I tried Meta last week versus 300, and I don't know. One of my rules, I just won't carry a loser over the weekend. So I wasn't paying attention to it today. I just
the
happened.
relative strength, right? Like
Yeah,
it was up 3.25% today. Amazon was up 3.5%. The other one like that's kind of setting up and basing here is Shop.
yeah. Today, and it reclaimed that gap low, which was awesome to see.
Yeah.
Not quite an engulfing bar, but that 63.30 was definitely the level to watch, I think.
Yeah, it basically broke down, got everyone excited on the short side, and then reversed higher, which is exactly what it did just 2 weeks before that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that looks good. There's a lot of stuff that looks constructive, but dude, these ranges that they've been in for how long is kind of bananas, right? And we've talked about this, I think, quite a few times, which is these ranges could last a long time, a
Yeah.
really long time. So you have to see meaningful breakouts, right? And out of these ranges, I think Shop has been in this 60 range for how long now? 2 years, nearly.
In Shop.
Yeah, Shop hit February 2022, so 19 months it's been in this range. And it got some pretty significant news with the Amazon partnership, and it still couldn't break out. So it's just something to notice that when you're getting really significant news and it can't break out, that it's probably still not ready, right?
Red flag.
Yeah, so it's a could base for a longer kind of flag, not red, maybe not yellow, maybe orange.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair.
Hey, GP, we got a question. Are you still in Vroom?
Yeah.
Still in Vroom. That's a check.
The other
Nick,
one that's
how's Clack looking?
You know, they held their 50-day today. I thought I was just kind of feeling I didn't like the bar that ANET put in. And it started off pretty ugly. And I still feel again like NVIDIA kind of wants to work its way down to the low end of that range. Largely because generally speaking, when a stock is in a range, and a breakout fails, in the back of my mind, I just kind of assume that price wants to make its way back to the low end of the range before bouncing. And so I thought NVIDIA, so that's why I kind of think NVIDIA is going to drift a little bit lower from here if it doesn't hold this 50-day. I don't have Clack on right now. I was trying to move a lot of cash around, so
no Clack for you?
Yeah, I've got no semis on at the moment. I added to ZS, and I also added to Crowd. I'm a huge fan of your cyber.
Yeah, baby. I added some
security space,
ZS.
so.
I went pretty heavy some ZS.
Yeah.
I like Zscaler. Obviously I'm very long Sentinel One, and Sentinel One looks fan freaking tastic right now.
I-
We talked earlier about the 4 hour curling up and the daily curl. Like it just looks like it is ready to go. And I think once it clears basically
90,
1860, 1890, yeah, anywhere. Once it gets 19, baby is ripping.
Oh.
But crowd looks good too.
I
I actually was sort of torn between crowd and Zscaler. And I ultimately went Zscaler because I thought the chart looked ready for more upside.
Yeah, both Crowd and ZS on the weekly are probably two of my favorite setups, I think, out there right now. Like Crowd's more of a descending channel.
Yeah.
ZS has got more of that descending wedge, and I'm a huge fan of those like long lasting wedges. And then we broke out of the wedge and the channel and moved sideways, and now we're getting ready to bust out of those
Yeah,
those ranges.
I basically looked at crowd like I looked at the two like this, right? I was playing them off of basically, let me get my drawing tool up here. This range right here, and crowd was already
Yeah.
a little bit ahead from last week when I was purchasing, and I looked at Zscaler and I basically did the same thing, right? And it's just a little bit behind, but I think it's going to play catch up. So that's the reason why I took Zscaler instead of crowd. I like the indicators look a little bit better too. It just came out of earnings as opposed to earnings being a couple weeks ago. That might be the reason why it's a little bit more of a laggard, but I don't think it's a laggard for long. So that's
Yeah.
the reason why I went with Zscaler. I honestly had a hard time staying out of Palo Alto. Palo Alto was
Yeah.
really one that I wanted to get in, but I kind of get a little gun shy buying when I see a weekly or daily stoke that's pegged to the floor like that one is. So I didn't get in Palo Alto, but again, it looks really good too.
A little bit messier of a chart, but on the daily, you almost have kind of that island, uh,
Yeah,
that island reversal look to it. I'd rather see that kind of pattern in a bottoming formation rather than kind of like mid trend. But yeah, I don't have any Palo Alto either at the moment.
well, I didn't want to go too large because again, I have the Sentinel One holdings that I'm in that I'm really happy with, and I'd added more Sentinel One back over here before the whole potential looking for a buyer situation sprung it out of there. So I'm very heavy cybersecurity, and again, I just thought Zscaler looked more right to me. Also, I'm trying to kind of figure out who might be a buyer for Sentinel One, and I'm thinking Microsoft or Palo Alto is the most likely buyer, but that's just me speculating. So I in my mind again, it was between Zscaler and CrowdStrike who I wanted to be with. Okta's had a really good earn after earnings. I mean, look at that chart.
Okta looks good too.
Yeah, path too.
Yeah. The thing looks like it's ready to go stage 2 also.
It's got to clear that 22 level.
Yeah.
It's such a big level.
does.
It's such a monster level. And so far this year, we've pushed into those levels and sold off. So, but that still gives you another $3 from here.
Yep.
Holy shit. God, the number, I just pulled up Path on MarketSmith. The number of funds jumped almost 200 funds in the last quarter.
Wow.
Yeah, there's monster accumulation. You can see it in the chart too, right? Look,
Yeah.
it's so once again, it's a question of when, not if, right? Like, because they're executing, their numbers are doing well. There's accumulation. There's more institutional coming in.
It looks great.
It just looks phenomenal. So
Do you have Path? Are you in it now?
I'm long via leaps.
Okay.
I don't always do shares, right? So I want to make sure I give it enough time. The same way with Coinbase, I'm not long shares, I'm long 2025 leaps.
2025 leaps.
Yeah, I bought I think 60 leaps when coin was like 57.
Yeah.
Your IoT is looking high and tight up here too.
That one I actually have just shares because this is that IPO that this is what everything else has failed when it comes back to prior highs. So let's see if this one is in the same camp, but it's like 98% institutionally owned, Nick. It's just
Hey, GP, what we got just a couple minutes left.
Yeah.
But I think it's important, if you can, just take a minute and explain on your long-term positions why you buy leaps, and maybe how high of a strike price you buy leaps, or why you buy shares.
So IoT, I bought shares because I can see a longer term horizon on it, right? Same way with the Roblox, which obviously is taking it in the pooper right now. But I don't know where this ends, right? Whereas Coinbase to me it's too much of a regulated, kind of dependent on crypto. Chart still looks good, but I just don't want to put the same capital to work. I also think Coinbase can move 50 to 100% in a matter of weeks, and then lose 50% in a matter of weeks. So I don't see a long-term future for Coinbase for me versus a momentum play. Whereas IoT, I see I've done more of the fundamental work that I want to be long. Same way I'm long Ravine shares, I'm also long leaps, but I'm long shares.
Sorry, GP. I was going to say, like, you can still be long via those leaps and just roll them out further, right? If you want to be in something even longer. So yeah. I guess from your perspective, it's a safer long-term investment to be long the shares for something that you have done the due diligence on, that you see a good upside on, versus something that you're just in it to maximize the profits. And if it comes before the leap date, great, you'll take those profits out on those calls.
Yeah. And for me, coin, I just don't know if the government doesn't destroy it, right? That's my bigger position. So if the government comes in and destroys not Coinbase but crypto in any form, which I don't think they will, but who knows? You never know if someone gets in there. That there's just too much risk for me on that versus IoT. I don't think is in the same boat. They don't have the same regulatory hurdles, right?
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Yeah.
There could be a lot of reasons why one does what they do, right? And part of that could be the amount of money that you have to lay out in the shares versus what you're paying for leaps, right? Or
correct. And for coin, I went with closer to the money 2025 leaps because I looked at the further ones out. They were really expensive for the move. Like, let's say coin at that time it was 57, right? And coin goes to 110. Those 60s will go, I think I bought them for 20. They'll go from 20 to 50. Whereas if I bought the 100 hundreds, they're already $10. I'm going to break even, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't worth buying the out of money leaps because the implied volatility and premium was way too high for me to take that as a great risk reward.
All right.
There's a lot that goes into it, right? It's not just a simple equation. So
Yeah. I just wanted you to walk through what your thought process was on when you do that.
it's usually my conviction, right? Like
Yeah.
I think Rivian goes much higher. I just don't know when. So it could be 5 years from now, right? Tesla took 8 years to work out. So
Yep. Well, let's run down our stock picks. We already talked about Tesla at length. Fastly, Nick, not bad, up 2.5%, 2% today. Looks solid. Go for it. Tell us what you're seeing.
I was happy with the daily engulfer. Volume, meh. Basically held the 10-day, the 10-day EMA on a shorter time frame. Obviously, 2431 is like my next B point for the next CD leg higher. I like how the weekly is shaping up, and my hopes, at least for the contest sake, that it just decides to continue start stopping and trending
It still
higher.
looks good. I mean, it still looks good.
Yeah. So that's about nothing to get too crazy about, but
nothing to be fretting about in a week.
Yeah, for sure.
GP W.
Fair.
it's just waiting for the base, right? It's retesting the base. So I really like what it's doing here. Volume's there to support the purchasing that's been happening. It's a low volume pullback into the top of the base. When this starts to move with, I think it's 40% interest, short interest,
Oof.
this will fly.
Yeah. God, it gets over that 75, 76 and
but it's come back and tested the top of the base and it's held, right?
Yeah.
So your risk to reward, even if you were late to get in, is still that 72.50 level is the level I kind of have. So $1.50 down and potentially 50, 60 bucks up, right? So depending on your time, on how long you want to hold.
I think it's going to 150.
Yeah.
You what?
I think it's going to 150.
Yeah, well, I try to be less optimistic on this channel than what my actual thoughts are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys were like Tesla all-time high, and that's my pick. I'm not just over here blowing smoke. I like both of your picks, and I think Wayfair is going to 150. I know we put 130, 140 for you, and on Fastly we went 25 to 50. I definitely think 50's. I would have probably said 60, 58.90 was where I would have probably marked it right here. But again, like I think
managing expectations.
Yeah. We don't want people to hear us saying that as GP, you said it was going to 400, right, or whatever.
I was wrong. Shove it.
We make mistakes. This is not financial advice. This is only education and entertainment.
We're playing a game amongst the three of us. We're not asking you to buy, right?
That's right.
So we're just talking about our observations, and anything can change at any point in time, right? If we have an exogenous, no, is that the right word? I don't know what the right word is here. It's a little late, but if we have some kind of weird event happen like World War III, all of these positions go bye-bye. So.
Yeah, they're going to zero.
I mean, shit, if the end of the world's coming, just buy it all.
What's that?
So if the end of the world's coming, I say just buy it all. Why not? Lotto throw it.
Right. That's the mentality. I think Art of Execution talked about it, but as so many people have, if the end of the world is coming, then you buy it. Either you're going to go broke anyway, or you're going to turn out to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what Art Cashin said. I love hearing Art Cashin, who is the floor director at the New York Stock Exchange for many years, and he's a frequent guest on CNBC in the mornings. He was using that, and he was like, in my early days, it was the Cuban Missile Crisis, and he was sitting with another old broker, and he's like, you buy it, because if it's the end of the world, it just don't matter, and if it doesn't, then you're going to see the biggest bullish exuberance ever, that it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you just buy it. And I believe that too, right? Anybody who's listened to us knows that we are bulls by nature, because we are optimistic people, and we know over the long course of history the market goes higher. But at the same time, right, like there are moments that scare people and get you out of your positions, and there are thousands of reasons to sell your positions. But usually when it feels like it's at its darkest, that is when fortunes are made by people who are buying and not selling.
Ain't that the truth?
Anyway.
Yep, like China Apple. Sorry.
like Jensen Wong committing fraud.
He waited till his company got to $1 trillion to throw fraud on the table. Why not?
Yeah.
I love it. I love the lack of. I appreciate the people who are actually doing the work and providing all different sides of it. They may ultimately be right. I just don't think they're going to be right now. In terms of price action, I'm not talking about the fraud. But it's funny to see that that's the narrative. I'm like, so if it's not fraud, does that mean we have a bullish exuberance and they all cover? No, the reality is this is all part of the conversation, right? It's just fun to see that people don't apply logic to any of this stuff.
No, I mean, the market in its entirety is so emotionally driven.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't understand the people who are like, you know what? This guy waited 22 years and wait till $1 trillion valuation to say, yeah, it's time to do that fraud thing.
Yeah. All right, gang. That's another wrap on another show. We gotta schedule some time for Cookie. It's about that quarterly update time, so we'll invite him back in the coming shows. But hey, it was a pleasure having everyone here listening, guys. It's always a pleasure to be with you, GP, Nick. It's always a pleasure. It's always a privilege to spend an hour of my week chatting the things we love to do with you guys. And I appreciate it. And we would appreciate you, our listeners and watchers, to tell your friends, tell your grandma, tell your uncles, your aunts, like, hey, tune into these people. They're all right. They're cool. They're funny. They make us chuckle. And hey, we've banked because of these guys. Not that we are telling you to buy anything, but we've done pretty good at in our own portfolios, which we tell you about here. So, Randy, we love you long time. Thanks for setting up the tables and chairs, but it smells in here. But anyway, tell a friend to tell a friend, like, share, comment, follow. We appreciate you guys. And thanks for being